The Three Knocks Created and Written by Elias Del Rio. Chapter 4. A Familiar Voice. My sister's hand closed around my wrist. "Do you hear that?" she asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The humming continued from somewhere above us. Soft, distant, almost lost beneath the quiet shifting of the house. But I recognized the melody. Mom used to hum it while she cooked. She never sang the words. I wasn't sure she even knew them. It was simply something she did without thinking, while moving around the kitchen, folding laundry, or watering the plants beside the living room window. A sound so ordinary that I had barely noticed it when she was alive. Now it was coming from upstairs. My sister tightened her grip on my wrist. "That's her," she whispered. I looked at her. "No," I said. "You know it is," she insisted. "It sounds like her," I replied. "It is her," my sister said. Neither of us moved. My eyes remained fixed on the top of the staircase. The hallway above us was empty, at least the part we could see. "Mom," my sister called. Her voice cracked around the word. The humming stopped, not gradually, all at once. The silence that followed felt heavier than the sound itself. I wanted to tell my sister not to call out again, not to give whatever was upstairs another reason to answer. Then, knock! The sound came from the front door. My sister's grip tightened around my wrist. A second knock followed, louder this time, then a third. My sister finally released my wrist. "Are you going to answer it?" she whispered. I looked back toward the empty staircase. The humming had not returned. Another knock came from the front door. This one was softer, almost hesitant. "Hello," a woman called from outside. "It's me." I recognized her voice. She had lived next door for as long as I could remember. After her children died, Mom checked on her every day. She brought her food and sat beside her when she didn't want to be alone. 2 children, both gone on the same day. I had been too young to understand what that kind of loss did to someone. Now I understood more than I wanted to. "It's her," I told my sister. "Are you two home?" the neighbor called. I slowly walked toward the door, but I could still feel the darkness of the upstairs hallway behind me. Watching, waiting. I reached for the doorknob. Through the narrow window beside it, I saw her standing alone with a covered dish in her hands. I unlocked the door and slowly pulled it open. "There you are," the neighbor said. "I was beginning to worry." "I'm sorry," I replied. "We didn't hear you at first." The lie came easily. She noticed my sister standing near the dining room, and her expression softened. "I made something for both of you," the neighbor said, lifting the dish slightly. "I know eating is probably the last thing on your minds, but you need to try." "Thank you," my sister said quietly. The neighbor stepped forward, then stopped. Her eyes moved toward the roses on the dining room table. The warmth disappeared from her expression. She stared at the bouquet without saying anything. "What is it?" I asked. Her fingers tightened around the covered dish. "Where did you get those flowers?" the neighbor finally asked. "They were outside when we came home yesterday," I replied. She looked at me. "Outside?" "On the welcome mat," I explained. "Was there a card?" she asked. "No." Her eyes returned to the roses. "What is it?" my sister asked. The neighbor blinked as though the question had pulled her back into the room. "Nothing," she said. "They just reminded me of something." She stepped inside and I closed the door behind her. The covered dish trembled slightly in her hands as she carried it into the kitchen. She placed the dish on the counter and removed her coat. "Your mother helped me choose roses like those for my children's service," the neighbor said. Her voice had grown quieter. "I didn't know that," my sister replied. "There was no reason for you to," the neighbor said. She looked toward the dining room. They were beautiful then, too. The way she said it made the room feel colder. "I'm sorry," when I said. She gave me a small smile. "You have nothing to apologize for." My sister walked over and embraced her. The neighbor wrapped her arms around my sister and held her tightly. "Your mother loved both of you very much," the neighbor whispered. "I know," my sister said. The neighbor closed her eyes, her hand resting against the back of my sister's head, like a mother comforting her child. When they separated, she wiped beneath one eye and forced another smile. "Have either of you been sleeping?" the neighbor asked. "A little," I answered. "Not well," my sister admitted. The neighbor nodded. "That's normal," she said. She began removing the foil from the dish. "After my children died, I hardly slept for weeks. My sister looked down. Did you dream about them? She asked. The neighbor stopped for a second, then continued folding the foil. Every night, the neighbor replied. She glanced between us. What about you? She asked. Have you dreamed about your parents? I did at first, I answered. What do you mean at first? The neighbor asked. I didn't dream last night. My sister looked at me. Neither did I, she said. The neighbor's hands became still. Her eyes moved toward the roses again. Something changed in her expression. It wasn't fear. It looked more like recognition. Then it disappeared. That might be for the best, she said. At the time, neither of us thought there was anything strange about her questions. She had lost her children, and we had lost our parents. We assumed she was trying to help us understand our grief. It never occurred to us that she might have been asking for another reason. The neighbor carried the dish into the dining room and placed it on the table. We should eat before it gets cold, she said. My sister pulled out a chair. I'm not really hungry. I know, the neighbor replied. Neither was I, but your mother made sure I ate, even when I didn't want to. She removed the lid from the dish. The smell of warm food filled the room. For the first time in a while, the house began to feel occupied again. Cabinets opened, silverware moved, plates touched the counter. Ordinary sounds I hadn't realized I missed. I poured 3 glasses of water while the neighbor divided the food between our plates. As she worked, she began humming quietly beneath her breath. I stopped pouring. Water spilled over the edge of the glass and ran across my hand. It was the same melody, the one we had heard upstairs. Where did you learn that? I asked. She looked at me. Learn what? That song. Oh, she said. Your mother used to hum it constantly. I suppose it rubbed off on me. My sister looked at me from across the room. The neighbor noticed. What is it? She asked. That's what we heard before you came, my sister answered. The neighbor's smile faded. Heard where? Upstairs. She turned toward the empty staircase. It was probably the house settling, the neighbor said. It wasn't the house, my sister insisted. It was someone humming. The neighbor looked at me, waiting for me to disagree. Instead, I said, I heard it too. The room became quiet. She looked toward the staircase once more, then sat down. You've both been through something terrible, she said. Grief can make familiar things feel very real. It sounded like an explanation, but the way she watched the staircase made it clear she didn't believe it either. Before either of us could respond, the telephone rang. All 3 of us jumped. I walked into the kitchen. The clock above the doorway showed a little after 4. It was early for dinner, but neither of us had eaten much that day. I picked it up. Hello? Good afternoon, a familiar man's voice said. This is Daniel Mercer, the funeral arranger assisting your family. I looked toward my sister. The neighbor's hands became still again. I wanted to let you know that everything is ready, he continued. We'll need either you or your sister to come in tomorrow morning, confirm your parents' identification, and sign an identification acknowledgement before we can proceed with the service. Tomorrow morning is fine, I told Daniel. I'll make a note of it, he replied. When you arrive, let the receptionist know you're there to see me, and I'll take care of everything. Okay? We'll see you tomorrow, Daniel said. And again, I'm very sorry for your loss. Thank you. The call ended. I slowly put down the phone. When I turned around, the neighbor was already putting on her coat. I'm going to let you 2 get some rest, she said quietly. But if either of you needs anything, please call me. She glanced from my sister to me. And don't be strangers, she whispered. Come by and visit whenever you want. You don't need a reason. My sister gave her a small smile. We will. Your mother was there when I needed someone, she said. The least I can do is be here for both of you. By the time we finished dinner, the house had become quiet again. My sister and I searched for the note one more time. We looked under the table, behind the vase and inside the trash. It was gone. Eventually, we stopped looking. There was nothing else we could do. Several hours later, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The neighbor's words continued playing in my mind. Sweet dreams. People said things like that all the time. But she had asked whether we were sleeping, whether we had dreamed about our parents. Then she had looked at the roses and told us that not dreaming might be for the best. At the time, her questions had sounded harmless. Now, alone in the darkness, they felt different, almost as if she hadn't been asking because she was concerned, almost as if she had been checking. I turned onto my side and pulled the pillow closer. Something beneath it crinkled. I froze. Then I slowly lifted my head and reached beneath the pillow. My fingers touched something damp. Paper. I pulled it out. It was the missing note, folded twice, exactly as it had been when I found it beneath the roses. I opened it. The words were still there. Dream. A little. A floorboard creaked at the far end of the hallway. I held my breath. Another creak followed. Closer. Then another. Slow. Measured. Someone was walking toward my bedroom. The footsteps stopped every few seconds, almost as if whoever was out there was listening for movement from inside the room. Then they continued, growing closer each time. The air around me grew colder. The darkness beneath my bedroom door changed as a shadow stretched across the narrow space. Someone was standing on the other side. I couldn't see them, but I could feel them there, waiting, listening. The floor creaked directly outside my door. Then everything became still. I tightened my grip around the note. A woman began humming from the other side.